Hey everyone, Arthur here, back to the Xbox 360 coverage in preparation for the marketplace shutdown in July. This is part 4 of the coverage. Do check out the other parts and stay tuned for a part 4B and probably even part 4C in the future, because there are loads of ever important DLCs to talk about. Before anything else, I gotta say that I've been getting a lot of comments from people telling me that they are not getting notified of my videos from YouTube even though they're subscribed. They're having to search on my channel directly, or they receive the notification weeks or months later. And though this is a widespread thing, it's not exclusive to my channel. There are ways we can fix that. You can click on the bell down there and select all videos. That forces YouTube to notify you of any new upload. And the like button also helps a lot, because if a video gets a lot of engagement, I hate that word, but yeah, likes, shares, comments, super thanks, then the algorithm shows it to more people. Otherwise, it hides it even from the subscribers. I have a lot to say about this actually. I may make a video on it. But yeah, if you appreciate this channel and would like it to keep existing, clicking on like or engaging with it in any way actually does that, as much as I hate that that's how it works. But anyway, where were we again? Xbox 360's DLCs. Yeah, I'm concentrating on the ones that are either exclusive to the Xbox 360 or have limited availability, like being only on the PlayStation 3 or only on PCs or only on the Xbox ecosystem, though Microsoft did a much better job than Sony and Nintendo combined in terms of preservation and availability of their games and DLCs, so there are far fewer DLCs that are true exclusives to the 360, but we will cover those that are, and even the ones that can be found elsewhere are worth mentioning, because we need to decide which ones not to get as well, right? That's super important too. So grab your lists and let's take a look at 50 DLCs in the usual deep detail, with what each DLC unlocks, prices, storage space, all your other options for each entry, and even achievements they unlock, because here you get some serious information, dude. Let's go. Welcome to the channel. This is From the Void. This time we must start with a true Xbox 360 exclusive. This is not found anywhere else, both game and DLC, and there are loads of DLCs, and this is a very misunderstood title that deserves to be talked about in detail, because despite its flaws, it offers a lot of enjoyment for the right person. We're talking about Otomedius Excellent. Okay, this is a Konami game based on the Gradius series. If you haven't played a Gradius game, let me tell you, they are kinda weird for beginners. It's not the typical case of gaining power-ups by picking them up. The pickups are actually a kind of currency that you exchange for power-ups during the stages. In the middle of the shmup mayhem, there is a dedicated button for that, and it works in a very peculiar way. If you have one currency, you can unlock the first power-up in your list, which is usually a speed boost. If you don't spend it right away and accumulate more, you can get the second, third, and so on. And to go back in the list of power-ups, you'll need to actually go all the way beyond the final one. So it's a whole strategic aspect that requires you to learn what each power-up does, which you should prioritize, and pay a lot of attention to all this during the stages. It's not friendly to newcomers at all, and Otomedius goes crazy with this compared to other Gradius games I've played. There's a whole bunch of power-ups you can customize to your setup. Many are exclusive to one or some characters only. Each girl has a specific type of helper robot, which is always one of the power-ups in the list, and the most important one actually, because those are the only ones you can keep after you die by picking them up once you spawn back. So yeah, it's a whole thing, but also a lot of fun and very engaging if you're someone patient enough to spend the time getting used to all this. If you are, the DLCs in Otomedius Excellent will expand the fun considerably, though also expensively. There are 3 new stages, each for $5.99, 2 new playable characters for $4.99 each, with completely new setups, and one of them is a Belmont, for crying out loud. She is a canonical descendant of the Belmont clan from Castlevania, though this is her only appearance ever. Super weird, but kinda cool. There are also 9 extra outfits for the girls, and 10 new soundtrack packs packs for crazy expensive $5.49 each. If you want everything, this will cost you $110 almost. There was also a extra character exclusive to GameStop that I don't think is available for anyone anymore, and like I said, Otomedius Excellent cannot be found anywhere else besides the 360, and you can grab it physically or digitally. It's actually one game to watch as it tends to increase in price physically. Following up with Painkiller Hell Damnation. This is a Doom-style first-person shooter with everything to be expected from a title in this genre: fast-paced action, all manner of demonic creatures to kill, this kick-ass soundtrack, and a bunch of different and insane weapons to use in order to do all the demon slaying. So if you like this, the DLC offers a proper expansion to this game with new parts of the story, new maps, new weapons, and new enemies. The main pieces of the DLC are Demonic Vacations, Operation Zombie Bunker, The Clock Strikes Midnight, and City Critters for $6.99 each. Kind of expensive. Additionally, there are two multiplayer-focused DLCs. Those are Medieval Horror and Full Metal Rocket for $3.99 each. Altogether, this DLC will cost almost $36, which is a lot, and Painkiller Hell Damnation is not available in other Xboxes, only PlayStation 3 and Steam. Moving on to the disturbing, brutal, and awesome Dante's Inferno. This is a really cool game in my opinion. It doesn't hold any punches in terms of the grotesque and disturbing things it shows you on your way down the 9 circles of hell. It's also a slow burn action adventure that gets so much better as it goes on. By the end, this game truly flourishes and shows its full personality. This is really not a generic God of War clone like so many may think. Now as for DLC, we already lost the Trials of St. Lucia, which was a online focused pack that added St. Lucia as a new character that could be used by players in co-op mode, playable online, and 12 new arenas that could be customized by players. That's all gone, sadly, but what remains is also pretty meaningful, especially the story DLC called Dark Forest that provides a prologue of sorts, with new combat encounters to beat, including new enemies, which is the best part of the game in my opinion. So if you're left wanting even more hacking and slashing with a scythe and cross, this could be a good DLC for you. It goes for $4.99, not super expensive. Furthermore, there are 2 new magics and some runes in the Godlike and Devils pack, as well as a triple pack of new relics for $2.99 each, and finally you can grab 2 new costumes for $1.99 each. All this can also be found on other Xboxes. However, and I think this is something most people are not aware of, a bunch of add-ons and even entire games on the PS3's PSN are being silently removed all of a sudden for some regions, and that's the case of Dante's Inferno. While PAL regions are still able to find the DLCs, NTSC US regions are not so lucky anymore. I checked this myself. The game can be downloaded, but the DLCs are no longer there, so Xboxes are already our only option. Next is one of the most misunderstood games ever, Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts. In an attempt to modernize itself, the Banjo franchise ended up alienating most of its audience that was thirsty for more traditional Banjo adventuring, exploring, and discovering, because all that is all but replaced with a mission-based structure that drops you straight into the action itself, and that is also wildly different, mostly revolving around the act of driving vehicles that you create yourself with parts unlocked throughout the stages. The structure of the game is sound and there is a lot of fun to be had, but it's such a drastic turn in direction for the series that no matter how creative and enjoyable it gets, it was just not what most people signed up for. So that's why the game wasn't what you call a success. And that was the last we've seen from the Baron Bird as far as a new game on the series for all this time, which is beyond tragic. But anyway, if you're interested, you may also want to grab the DLC for this game called Logs Lost Challenges that adds new missions to grab jiggies, new vehicles, new multiplayer options and more. This DLC is only found on the Rare Replay collection other than the Xbox 360. Following up with Binary Domain. This is a third-person shooter that passed by kind of unnoticed due to the sheer amount of other shooters that overpopulated this era of video games. Sega managed to achieve some impressive results with this game. The enemies are machines and there is a whole mechanism behind shooting them and destroying each part of the machine, or even each layer of metal to expose a weak point, for instance, making the fights very satisfying in a gameplay sense too. Boss fights are also a major highlight, exhilarating and enjoyable through the whole game. This game has a lot to offer, and the DLC called Dan Marshall's Pack is cheap for $1.99 and adds a welcome new weapon and new skills to be used in the single player campaign. There's also a multiplayer pack which has lost some of its appeal so many years later, I bet, but it's also cheap for $1.99. Right now Binary Domain is no longer available on the PlayStation 3. It was removed at least from the NTSC US region, so your options are reduced to Xboxes and Steam only. One DLC that will become much harder to grab after the marketplace closes is the one for Sonic the Hedgehog. Yeah, we're talking about the atrociously hilarious horror fest that was the 2006 Sonic the Hedgehog. This is that game that has a bizarrely awkward, what were they thinking, romance between Sonic and a human girl 2 times his height. Her head is half of Sonic's head. This is all kinds of wrong. It's borderline zoophilia. I mean, how is this allowed? The game is all kinds of jank too. It's all so bad, it's so beyond belief awful that it becomes fascinating. So the DLC is more important than it should as well, because it adds some pretty meaningful stuff to the game. There is an additional episode called Team Attack Amigo for $188, weird price, additional missions for each character for $249 each, and the boss rush mode for each character as well for $188 each. Now here's the thing, this game is already only found on PlayStation 3 and Xboxes, but the DLC is for some reason non-purchasable on the newer Xboxes. I believe that if you buy them on the 360, you may then play it on One and Series. Please confirm this if you can, because I don't have either One or Series, so I can't test it myself, but I'm sure you can't buy the DLC through those systems, so they're gonna go away from Xboxes once the marketplace shuts down. Then on the PlayStation 3, things are also not pretty, because only some of the DLC remains on the NTSC US region. All regions still have access to all of it, but the additional episode and the missions pack for all 3 characters were delisted from the PlayStation 3 storefront in the US. I checked this myself. So it really looks like the Xbox 360 is the only way to officially get most DLCs for Sonic 2006 for about half the planet. Next is my favorite game on this franchise, Beautiful Katamari. This is a treat. I already covered the game in a previous 360 video, so I'll refrain from explaining it too much. I'll just reiterate that this series is awesome, great addictive gameplay, and Beautiful Katamari is the best I've played on the series. The DLC here is very meaningful. The main ones are the extra stages. There are 7 of those for $1 each. Those are must-gets in my opinion. Some of the best stages in the game are the DLCs. Then additionally, you can opt to get a whole bunch of new cousins. Those are the characters in the game. They are quirky and lovely actually, all of them, so it's very tempting for fans, and also a lot of extra accessories for them to wear. This will cost you an extra 21 bucks, and it's pretty much purely cosmetic, so it's hard to justify for me, but at least the stages are must-gets in my opinion. Beautiful Katamari and its DLCs have been brought over through backwards compatibility on 1 and series, but that's it, nowhere else. Next is Blue Dragon. People have grown more and more fond of this game as time goes by. The major criticism it got back in the day were the lack of originality, the slow pace, and how weird the shadows look for some. I didn't find myself jamming with it back in the day because of those very reasons, but I've played it since and enjoyed it way more than 15 years ago. There's a lot of attention to detail in this game and a lot of heart too. The prowess of legendary game makers Hironobu Sakaguchi, Nobuo Uematsu, and now the sadly, devastatingly, and way too prematurely passed Akira Toriyama shines through any of the negative aspects if you allow it, and there's a lot to enjoy here. It's a traditional turn-based RPG, and any veteran lover of this genre should enjoy it, especially if you also want to tackle the downloadable content it offers. The main one is Shuffle Dungeon, an endgame dungeon with 10 new boss fights and a whole lot of new items to find. You can also pick a pack of 6 useful items and unlock Ultra Hard mode for free. The paid ones cost a measly $2 in total, so I don't see why not. This next one is odd, but kinda cool, and the DLC is 100% exclusive to the Xbox 360. This is Ancients of Ooga. Okay, the game is weird. This is a puzzle platformer, I guess, but a very different one. You control the Oogas and can switch between all the ones you saved in any given level. Each color of Ooga represents a tribe, each with a different ability, and their chieftains have more powerful abilities, usually controlling the forces of nature. It's kinda cool, providing fun gameplay mechanisms. There is also a whole thing around being able to swallow and spit out all sorts of stuff, including other characters, that is also used very well in the gameplay. The game never becomes too taxing as a puzzler, but remains fun throughout with new ideas thrown into the mix. And that also counts for the Forgotten Chapters DLC, which is self-explanatory, providing a true expansion to the fun for $1.99. Not too expensive at all. Though the game itself can be found on Steam, the DLC is exclusive to the 360, and this wasn't even made forwards compatible to any other Xbox. Following up with one that has free DLCs, and this is such a wonderful and surprising game, a hallmark of its generation that deserves a sequel for sure, though I don't think it's gonna happen. Brutal Legend. This is a true action-adventure game with the biggest personality ever. There is nothing quite like it. The main character is a roadie for a crappy quote-unquote rock band who is frustrated with the course that music has taken, but then things take a wild turn when he unintentionally activates a portal to another world, which is a wicked mix of all metal band CD covers together. Really awesome premise right from the start, full of humor, and the soundtrack is wholly made of metal band songs, all copyrighted to the bone, so I can't use any of it. The gameplay is incredibly ambitious, offering a lot of action and adventuring, but also a kind of real-time strategy mixed with rock and roll concerts that will completely surprise most players, because that part of the game is also pretty well made. Anyway, I could go on and on about this game. It's an excellent title from Double Fine, but let's talk about the DLCs. They're all free. The Hammer of Infinite adds new multiplayer maps. The Tears of the Hextadon also adds new maps, but also includes exclusive single-player items as well, like new upgrades for your car, new outfits for Eddie, new achievements, and some other stuff. And finally, you can also grab the Love Guitar as a third free DLC. So even if you don't have the game, why not, right? Next up is Alice Madness Returns. This game has a free DLC that allows us access to the entire previous game in the franchise, called American McGee's Alice. Now, these two games share the same world and characters, but actually play very different, at least in terms of combat. Madness Returns is a typical action-adventure, with hacking, slashing, dodging, and using abilities, while American McGee's Alice is a very methodical style of shooter gameplay, where you have to keep your distance and defeat enemies from afar. It also looks way more dated than Madness Returns, which will probably be a turn-off to a lot of people, but I think it's important to mention this DLC, since this game was previously only available for PCs in disc format, which is not something that most people are willing to get nowadays. There is an additional DLC that unlocks new weapons and dresses for Alice, which could be nice as well. That one goes for $1.99. So there you have it, cool game and meaningful DLCs here, only available on PlayStation 3 and the Xbox family of consoles elsewhere. Now, Armored Core. Armored Core is a mech combat action series with both deep story modes, with a lot of variety in each mission, as well as a strong multiplayer appeal. The games demand a lot of effort from the player to learn all the mechanisms, but also provide a rewarding gameplay. Among the 4 Armored Core titles available on the 360, 2 of them have DLCs. Armored Core 5 has a modular spec with more customizable options for your mech to be used both in single player and multiplayer. However, a big parenthesis here. This DLC is not available in the US, only PAL regions as far as I could tell. The other ones available in our regions though, that's Armored Core Veredict Day, which is the final entry on this generation. And there's a whole host of DLCs for this game. 8 new mechs for roughly $20, 10 new pilots for roughly $10, several sets of parts and emblems, and even an alternative soundtrack and voices too. The total sum is kinda crazy though, almost $80. This one is a must-have DLC if you plan on or already have this very awesome game, Asura's Wrath. Asura's Wrath is truly something to behold. It's as cinematic as they come, with loads of over-the-top action, bigger-than-life boss fights, cool characters, just pure awesomeness all around, with the angriest main character in all of video games. As for the DLC, it is a must-get because it tells the final 4 episodes in the game, plus an additional 4 side episodes as well. The 4 final ones can be bought separately for $1.99 each, or bundled together with a $2 discount for $6.99. While the additional episodes, those are 11.5, 15.5, and Lost Episodes 1 and 2, will have to be purchased separately for $1.99 each, for a total of almost $15. One of the best games no one talks about anymore, and that goes for the DLC too, is Ilomilo. This is a lovely looking but deviously challenging puzzle platformer. You can manipulate the blocks that compose the stages, you can sometimes flip over to the other sides of the blocks ignoring gravity. The game adds a lot of new rules and enemies that you'll have to be aware of, so this game keeps improving itself and gets rather tough later on. The DLC adds more puzzle platforming fun and is a must-have if you enjoy the game, because it's cheap and it's a proper expansion to the campaign, adding the Autumn Tale with 25 new levels and new achievements as well. Ilomilo can only be played on the Xbox family of consoles. Next is Birds of Steel. I have yet to play this one, but I hear good things about it, with heart-pumping action, a long campaign, and great presentation. The DLC adds 3 map packs with several new campaigns, dozens of new missions, new versus maps, and more, but those are expensive for almost $27. 2 new planes will cost you $4.99, and there's some extra in-game currency you can buy too. That doesn't sound very good, but I could be wrong. Birds of Steel is a 7th generation only game, found on PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, and that's it. And then a must-get DLC for me is the one for Corps Uprising. I'm not gonna go into how awesome this game is and its soundtrack for a third time on this channel. I'll just say that this is a Contra game despite the name, and it's badass as all hell. And the DLC unlocks the 3 new characters, which are all cool and have different traits, and they're not very expensive for $249 each, so this is a total non-brainer for a fan of Contra games. Hardcore Uprising is also available on the PlayStation 3 as well as other Xboxes. Next is a true exclusive to the 360, Bobble Neo. This is pretty much the same gameplay of the original from 1986, only with different but not very good looking visuals. The gameplay remains fun though. If you like Bobble, this is exactly that, and the DLCs provide nothing less than 100 extra levels to download in 2 packs of $2.99. Bobble Neo and its DLCs are 100% exclusive to the Xbox 360 and digital only. Moving on to the unmatched multiplayer-focused mayhem series Left 4 Dead. Hell yeah, Left 4 Dead. I've played both of these games a whole lot with friends back in the day, and it was a blast. Researching for this video, I can see that these are still being played by many people to this day, especially the sequel, but we'll talk more about that later. These are fantastic co-op focused zombie killers in first person, really hard games too, but awesome when you get 4 people who know what they're doing and manage to survive a tank and thousands of zombies coming from all sides. The DLCs in this game are incredibly meaningful, adding entirely new episodes to an otherwise kinda short campaign, especially in the original, so if you already have this game and plan on playing it more in the future, it may be a good idea to grab them now. There is also a free DLC called Survival Pack, also for the original, that adds a new multiplayer mode and 2 extra campaigns for the versus mode, so grab that for sure. And your only other option for these DLCs is on Steam, where the DLCs are bundled with the game, because even though Left 4 Dead 1 and 2 are available on Xbox One and Series, the DLCs cannot be purchased on those, only on the 360. I believe that if you buy them on the 360, you can then play them on One and Series, though I may be wrong because I don't have those, so please confirm or correct me down in the comments and I'll pin that to the first comment. Then the sequel is a similar case. There are very meaningful DLCs that add entirely new campaigns, including even the cast from the original game, must-haves. Again, on Steam, the game already includes the DLCs, and in the case of Left 4 Dead 2, they continue to support the game way beyond the release, like a decade after even. Steam is definitely the better version of Left 4 Dead 2, so you may want to favor getting it there if you can. Next is the amusing Deathspank Thongs of Virtue. This is a sequel to Deathspank, offering more of the hilarious and thoroughly enjoyable action-adventure fun. Both games are great, you should try them out, and I'll cover them more in the future. The sequel is the only one with DLCs though, a pretty meaningful one called the Snowy Mountain Dungeon, offering a proper campaign expansion for $2.99, a fair price. There's also a DLC called Tanko the Warrior, which offers a new character to play as for only $1. Next up is Enslaved Odyssey to the West. This is a great action-adventure of this generation that brings a really cool take on the classic Chinese novel Journey to the West. The characters are very interesting, the gameplay is solid, and the graphics are outstanding for its time. This truly deserved a sequel, but at least it got a really great DLC called Pigsy's Perfect 10. Now this DLC is not more of what you got in the main campaign, it's a completely different thing. You control Pigsy instead of Monkey, and the gameplay is much more stealth-based because Pigsy is not a fighter at all. You will be relying on his sniper rifle and some useful gadgets. But this is a really cool and well-balanced stealth gameplay, as well as a pretty neat, interesting story. Pigsy's Perfect 10 costs $9.99. There are also some free DLCs to grab that provide some new costumes for the main characters. Those are Classic Monkey, Ninja Monkey, and Sexy Robot Trip. This is also available on the PlayStation 3 or Steam, where it comes bundled with the full game. Next is the Dirt series. We have Dirt 3 and Dirt Showdown offering DLCs on the 360. I have never played either, but apparently great racing games with a lot to offer and only minor drawbacks. Dirt 3's DLCs are now true exclusives to the 360, believe it or not, because this was delisted from Steam and the DLC called VIP Pass is not available to purchase on the newer Xboxes for some reason. It offers 5 new cars and new modes for $9.99. Then Showdown is a similar case. PlayStation 3 and Steam used to offer it, but those are now delisted. Xboxes though still offer the game and DLC, and that's the Loaded Liveries, which contains 3 monster liveries plus 3 hoonigans. I have no idea what a monster livery or a hoonigan are, but that will make sense for you if you're into these games. Next up is Final Fantasy stuff, very important, beginning with Final Fantasy XIII-2. This is such a weird entry in the franchise to me. I have such mixed feelings about this game. On one hand, the combat mechanics are some of the best in all of Final Fantasy to me, and on the other hand, I absolutely hated the 2 main characters, Sarah and Noel, and I couldn't get into the story as well. But in the end, it was more of a positive than a negative experience to me, and I'm sure that others can enjoy what I didn't in this game. And the DLC here is very important. The best one to get is the DLC Bundle Pack, which contains 3 new story scenarios. Those are Lightning Requiem of the Goddess, Saz's Head and Tails, and Snow Perpetual Battlefield. Those are pretty important because they tie the story of XIII-2 to 13 and to Lightning Returns as well, and once you beat each scenario you unlock that character to be used in battle. This bundle also includes all Colosseum extra opponents, which are some of the most challenging and enjoyable fights in the game, including bosses from previous titles in the franchise, like Gilgamesh from 5 and Ultras from 6. And finally, the bundle also includes a few extra outfits. All of these can be grabbed separately, but the bundle provides a major discount for $16.99. And then there is one remaining outfit not included in the bundle, that's Style and Steel, and 2 new weapons called Seraphic Wings and Azrael to grab as well. Note that some other costumes are no longer available, likely due to licensing deal expiration shenanigans. Nothing major though. These DLCs are also available on other Xboxes and PlayStation 3 as well as on Steam, but notice that the Steam part of XIII-2 is terrible. It crashes all the time, it's full of bugs, and load times are long as heck, so avoid that at all costs. Then we have Lightning Returns. I have not played this game yet, by the way, so I'll refrain from commenting on it. As for the DLCs, there are several new clothes, weapons and shields for Lightning based on other characters from other titles in the series. These are not simply cosmetic, they also bring new skills, usually from the original user of the costume, which are pretty cool, as well as effects and stats that may be very useful improving resistance, for instance. These are cool but also expensive, even if you go for the bundles that provide a discount. Everything put together sums almost 37 bucks. There is also a DLC for the Japanese voiceovers, and there are people who really prefer those, so it's definitely worth a mention. It goes for $3.99 and it's a heavy DLC, almost 2 gigabytes. Next is a non-backwards compatible and pretty solid aerial shooter that passed by very much under the radar, Dogfight 1942. This is an arcadey style dogfight shooter that simplifies the gameplay, focusing straight on the moment-to-moment action with a pretty good result. The campaign is straightforward and a lot of fun for the price, and the same can be said about the pieces of DLCs, each for $2.99, that offer a proper expansion to the campaign. One in Africa and another in Russia. Pretty cool changes of scenery for this solid game. Dogfight 1942 was not made available in recent Xboxes, but can be found on Steam and PlayStation 3 along with the DLC. Next, Fist of the North Star, Ken's Rage 1 and 2. These are Dynasty Warriors Musou type of games, so you know what you'll be getting here. And of all franchise they've ever used for this type of game, the Fist of the North Star fits the best in my opinion. right? With how violent it already is, the games are already packed full of content and the DLCs are no joke. For Ken's Rage 1, the two more expensive ones unlock one new character each, along with several missions. Those are $6.99, then the remaining are packs of new missions and costumes for several characters. They vary in price for a subtotal of almost $24 and a grand total of $38. Ken's Rage 2 has a truckload of DLC. There are 3 new characters you can grab in a bundle called Playable Characters Full Set that will set you back $18, 2 new mission packs for $8, 2 additional scrolls that improve certain character skills for $2.99 each, and then a whole host of costume packs with varying prices. If you want everything, this will cost you almost $70, which is more than the price of the game itself when it released, which is insane. Next is the beautiful Lost Odyssey. This was a console-exclusive turn-based RPG on the 360 that I feel was very misunderstood. It's one of those that was picked on by being out of touch with the times during this period of gaming, unjustifiably so to say the least, because there's so much to like here. The story is mesmerizing, very emotional, the entire presentation is gorgeous, both visuals and sound, and the combat is great with both a lot of room to strategize as well as a welcome action element. DLCs are also meaningful and cheap. For $1 you can unlock the Dungeon Pack, Seeker of the Deep, that adds a new dungeon, enemies and boss fights, and for another $2.49 you can grab the triple bonus pack, adding the Memory Lamp, which allows you to watch the past event scenes again, the Shattered Bond, and a special ring called the Killer Machine. Lost Odyssey and its DLCs are only found on the Xbox family of consoles. Another game 100% exclusive to the Xbox 360 is Crimson Alliance. This is obviously a Diablo clone, a surprisingly decent one. It simplifies a lot of stuff, focusing on the fluid and fun gameplay. Nice game if you like those, especially in multiplayer. Now on the store you will see that the game appears as free, but it's not really. You download the trial version for free, can try the first couple of stages, but then you need to unlock the full game for $14.99 or just one of the 3 classes for $9.99. The full game unlock is classified as DLC, but that's not all the extra content you can find for Crimson Alliance. There is also the Vengeance map pack that adds 3 new scenarios with new enemies, a nice addition for sure. Crimson Alliance is a digital-only Xbox 360 exclusive. Next up is Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. This is a pretty damn awesome game that's no news to anyone, and it has some very meaningful story DLCs that provide a welcome continuation to the story, and most of it is impressively free. Those are the Jetstream Sam DLC and the Blade Wolf DLC, both allowing you to play as their titular characters, which are rather awesome, I must say. There is also another meaningful DLC called VR Missions that includes 30 new missions to tackle as Raiden, but this one will cost you $2.49. And then a whole bunch of costumes, the White Armor, Inferno Armor, Cyborg Ninja, and one called Custom Body for Raiden, which is the Commando costume. Those will cost you an extra almost $9. Next is Hydro Thunder Hurricane. This is a great water racing game with an arcadey feel to it, satisfying controls and physics, as well as some wildly varied courses. The courses are really a highlight here, which makes the DLC all the more important because it unlocks all new tracks, as well as new boats, challenges, and achievements. And for the price of $4.99 is a must-get in my opinion, and it's only found on Xbox systems. Following up with a very unusual series. Joe Danger. Okay, I don't think I've ever played anything like Joe Danger before. Joe is a stuntman, and going fast while doing all sorts of crazy maneuvers is just his day job. The gameplay here is quite interesting, although it takes some time to get used to. You usually go forwards or backwards like a racing game with the shoulder buttons. You can duck under objects, and releasing the duck button makes him jump over stuff. And you can also change lanes to avoid obstacles. It's quite a lot to take in, but once you do, it's very cool to see all the crazy stuff that happens. There are 2 titles in the series, both on the 360. The original has a DLC for $2.99 that adds 6 new characters and 2 new vehicles. The game is also available on the PlayStation 3, Vita and Steam, but notice that none of those are the Xbox 360 exclusive Special Edition that is the only one that offers the DLCs. So your only other options for the original Joe Danger's DLC are the other Xboxes. Then the sequel has 2 DLCs called Nasty Championship and Undead Movie Pack, and those add new campaigns with dozens of levels as well as new characters. Another very meaningful DLC, but those are more expensive too. These add-ons used to also be available on the PlayStation 3, but it has since been delisted from the NTSC US PSN, while in Europe only one of them remains, the Undead Movie one. And that's also the case for Steam, only one of the DLCs is there. And on Vita, there are no DLCs. So again, only Xboxes offer all the DLCs for this one. Next is Street Fighter vs Tekken. Remember this? It didn't do all that well sales-wise. I remember a lot of negativity around it, but checking now the reviews, those are very positive. I never got to play it actually, but I'm planning on doing so in the future now. But I'll go with the PlayStation 3 over the Xbox 360 because of the DLC. So this is one maybe not to get in favor of another platform if you can. The Xbox version counts with the base add-on characters. Those are Sakura, Blanca, Guy, Cody, Elena, Dudley, Lars, Elisa, Jack X, Brian, Christy and Lei, which will set you back almost $20, and there's also almost $48 worth of extra costumes. However, the Xbox 360 version does not offer 5 extra characters that are exclusive to the PlayStation versions, meaning PlayStation 3 and Vita. 3 characters, including the infamous Guy, come already in the disc, while 2 more are found as free DLCs. Those are Pac-Man and the hilarious bad cover Mega Man, which is a total must-have for me. This is his only appearance ever, and that he even exists is so awesome. The Vita version, by the way, is a bit different when it comes to DLCs, because the physical came with a voucher code for all the paid extra characters, which may or may not work anymore, hard to say nowadays. It's a big issue with voucher codes, while the digital version already has all the DLC characters included, but it goes for double the price of the PlayStation 3 version on PSN. Also note that this game has been removed from Steam due to how broken that port was, but they never removed the DLC from being purchasable there, which doesn't make any sense. But in any case, this is a 7th generation exclusive game nowadays, because it's also not forwards compatible. Next is one that I already covered. This is a rather divisive game from acclaimed developer Rare, worth a look for sure. So if you're interested, check out the video in the corner of the screen for much more information on this very interesting game. We're talking about Kameo Elements of Power. This title has 2 free DLCs, so grab those if you want to play this game. They unlock 11 new skins designed by fans in a contest, as well as the online co-op mode. There are also 4 paid DLCs. The Power Pack unlocks Expert Mode, new skins, and new modes for the co-op multiplayer. Then the Masquerade, Winter Warrior, and Fright Warrior packs all unlock a bunch of new skins. Each one of these costs only $1 for a total of 4, and while Kameo's DLCs are only purchasables on the 360, there is a physical Xbox One option, the Rare Replay Collection, that contains Kameo with all the DLCs included. Next we have Lumines Live. Lumines is a pretty excellent series of falling blocks puzzle games. It may take a minute to understand it, but once you do you'll find an addictive game here for sure. And the DLCs are very important because if you know Lumines, you know how important the musics are, as you have to bust blocks before the tempo of the songs goes by. So the Tokyo Club Mix, Booster, Advanced Challenge and Rocking Holiday packs will provide a welcome and meaningful addition to this game. Problem is that these are kind of expensive with varying prices beginning at $4.99. Then we have a couple of also important packs. The CPU pack adds new CPU opponents as an entirely new gameplay mode, and the Puzzle Missions pack also adds entirely new modes, which are pretty cool. Altogether, this will set you back over $30, which is quite a lot. But the game is great. Lumines Live and its DLCs are only found on the Xbox ecosystem. Following up with Majin and the Forsaken Kingdom. This is a deeply forgotten and underrated game in my opinion. A true adventure full of action, puzzles and platforming, with cool ideas and only minor drawbacks like the voice of the Majin, and the DLC here is cheap and meaningful. It unlocks 3 new modes, the Battle Challenge, Sneak Challenge and Puzzle Challenge, with interesting new types of gameplay and even new costumes that grant new and exclusive abilities. Majin and the Forsaken Kingdom was never made forwards compatible with newer systems. This is stuck in the 7th generation, only on PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. Actually, the game is physical exclusive, only the DLC can be found digitally. Now the original NIER. I really enjoyed it, but it's very odd, violent, and manages to create an interesting dying world that makes you feel very uneasy throughout the whole game. But the end result was enjoyable to me, including the ending, or endings. There are multiple of them, with a strong incentive to tackle all of them. The remake, NIER Replicant Bunch of Numbers, revitalizes and improves a lot of stuff, but it's based on a version of the game that only Japan got, that was NIER Replicant with Brother NIER. So that's all to say that the original NIER on the 7th generation definitely retains its importance. And that's also true for the DLC, The World of the Recycled Vessel, which provides 15 new battles, several bonus costumes, weapons and a special quest, all for $6.99. Another important thing to mention is that the PlayStation 3 version has been delisted, at least in the NTSC US region, along with all the DLCs, so only the Xboxes remain for this DLC. Next is the very obscure Outpost Kaloki X. I guess this is a city builder mixed with a roller coaster tycoon style of gameplay. Your task is to build extensions that satisfy the needs of space travelers in the region. Quite an interesting gameplay, though also very niche. The DLCs though are mostly free. The Swarm scenario, Bounty Hunter scenario and Fireworks scenario provide new stories to tackle, basically a proper expansion for the game. And if you're hankering for even more, there are 2 more paid DLCs, the Love Story and the Challenge of the Gods scenarios, all substantial DLCs for this quirky game, and this is a true Xbox 360 exclusive not found anywhere else. Moving on to the king of roguelike action platformers, Spelunky. This is my favorite roguelike of all time. I love it to bits. It's so much fun to play this game. This is beautifully well made. The stages are randomized but don't feel like it. There are so many thoughtful pieces of levels that jam together seamlessly, which must have been a lot of work to produce. The gameplay is incredibly fluid with so many items and modifiers to explore. This game is brilliant. And there are 2 DLCs here, a pack of 8 new explorers to use and a pack of 24 new multiplayer arenas. Both are not very expensive. As for their availability though, Spelunky was ported to many platforms, and these extras are included by default in most of them, such as PlayStation 4, Switch and Steam. Though as I understand, for the characters you have to manually unlock them by playing the game. But I think this may very well be a case of not buying the DLC on the 360 if you can, since the other versions are already included. Note however that even though the game itself was brought forward to the Xboxes One and Series, the DLCs are not purchasable through those systems. games. So if you only have Xboxes, you will have to buy the DLCs on the 360, and I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, that if you do, you can then play it on One and Series. In any case, that's a bit of a mess. Next is Pac-Man Championship Edition DX Plus. This is a pretty cool modernization of the classic of classics that really gets what the original was all about and brings it to the 21st century in neon colors, bouncy beats, and frenetic gameplay. This is a fantastic game if you haven't tried it. There's a sequel, but they are significantly different in focus, with many people, myself included, preferring this first entry. The DLC is meaningful. It's called All You Can Eat Add-on Pack, which includes 4 courses, 3 skins, 2 new background musics for $7.99. Now, Perfect Dark Zero. When this game came out, I was under the impression from critics that this was a mediocre shooter, nowhere near the excellency of the N64 original, but I looked it up again and it actually got many great reviews and I liked what I've played so far of it for sure. The DLC here, however, is all about the multiplayer aspect, which I am not interested in, but many see Perfect Dark as synonymous with competitive multiplayer, so these are rather important, and one of them is free, while the other one is not too expensive for $1.99. Perfect Dark Zero is also playable on Xbox One and Series through the Rare Replay collection that already includes the DLCs. Moving on to Strania the Stella Machina. I already covered this one. It's a rather underrated shmup that really brings something different to the genre. Each stage in the game is constantly changing and the camera angle will vary to accompany it, so in many cases you'll have a way less margin of maneuver and reaction time, forcing you to have to switch to your secondary set of weapons that by default has a sword for melee combat. Pretty interesting. The DLC is super important as it includes a second harder campaign with a different story and main character, which is even better than the main campaign, so check this one out for sure. Following up with a true exclusive to the Xbox 360, Wrecked Revenge Revisited. This one I haven't played yet. I plan on because of its exclusivity, so I can cover it properly in a later video, but for now I can only say that it got some very positive reviews and some not so positive, with people saying that the multiplayer is great while the single player not so much. It looks pretty awesome, so I'm definitely looking forward to trying it out. The DLC called Highway to Hell seems invaluable, adding new challenges, new tracks, power-ups and vehicles for $4.99, and like I said, this is completely exclusive to the 360, at least in the NTSC US region. I believe that this game is only available in the European PSN. Next we have a very obscure little game called Yozumin Live. This is a puzzle title with a very simple premise. You can draw rectangular shapes on screen to clear blocks, but it only works if all corners of the rectangle contain the same color block. And that's it. That's the whole rule here. There are giant blocks, special blocks that refuel your timer, and they keep throwing in more colors of blocks that make things much more difficult later on, but the premise is super simple and easy to grasp. The DLC adds an all-important adventure mode, a must-have in my opinion. It's the best mode in the game, and it's only $1. I guess they realized they messed up by not having the story mode in the game by default, so they made it cheap. You can also opt to grab this game on Steam, where the DLC is already included, or on other Xboxes. Next, another pretty important DLC for Prince of Persia. This is the 2008 game simply called Prince of Persia that has its final chapter locked behind DLC. This is among the best received Prince of Persia entries in modern times, so this DLC is a big deal since it finishes the story. Prince of Persia Epilogue will cost you $9.99. This is also available on the PlayStation 3 and Xboxes, but note that the Steam version doesn't have the DLC, which is beyond baffling, so do not get this on Steam ever. That's it for now. There are lots more DLCs to cover, so stay tuned for the follow-up to this video soon. Part 4B and maybe even Part 4C. The 360 marketplace coverage will ramp up from now, so keep an eye out for future videos. Subscribe so you don't miss them. If you can, please engage with this damn thing. Click on the damn like, post damn comments, super thanks $1 damn, share with your damn friends. Go to the Patreon and become a damn patron of this godforsaken channel here, like these lovely people you're seeing the damn names of. And that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon, damn it.